Celebrations in the capital Khartoum as a political standoff de-escalates. In a gesture of peace, Sudan's ruling military freed more than 200 rebel fighters who are part of the country's opposition. A step towards reconciliation. One rebel leader praised their release.
It shows clearly that the army and the armed forces are our partners and not our enemy. With cooperation and understanding, we will meet the demands of the Sudanese people.
Those demands are for civilian rule. It's been the heart of the conflict, which began after the military ousted longtime leader Omar al-Bashir. Activists called for a transition to a civilian government. An impasse ensued, and then bloodshed. In June, security forces opened fire on a protest camp in the capital, leaving more than 100 dead. But after a month, the warring sides were at the table again in power-sharing talks mediated by the African Union and Ethiopia. After 2 days, a breakthrough was announced.
The two parties have agreed to share the Sovereign Council equally between them, military and civilian, for the period of at least 3 years. They have also agreed on an independent civilian government under the leadership of a prime minister.
In a further sign of healing, they also agreed to launch a national independent investigation into the deaths of the Sudanese who were killed in the fight for democracy.
DW's Aya Ibrahim joins me in the studio now for some analysis. Aya, you have reported extensively from Sudan for us. Tell us about the significance of this deal.
It's a significant deal in that it is the culmination of about 2.5 months of this uncertainty between the protesters and the military and negotiations that have been going on and off since the removal of Omar al-Bashir on April 11th. But this is by no means the first time that it looks like the military council and the protester leaders have reached a deal. There were many ups and downs in this almost 3-month period, with the military sometimes backing away from quite big concessions at the very last minute. So it remains to be seen if the deal will actually hold. However, this is the first time that we have a deal that is a result of a mediation. Before that, it was the military council and the protest leaders negotiating directly with each other. But this is the first fruit of the African Union and the Ethiopian mediators. And I think the most important thing to remember, the most significant thing about this deal is that this is not, this is by no stretch of the imagination a civilian rule, because there might be a confusion. People went out demanding civilian rule. What people are telling me is that that's still what they want. But this is a power-sharing agreement that may or may not lead to civilian rule in a couple of years following the culmination of the transitional period, but that remains to be seen.
OK, so potentially a good first step. As you say, you're in touch with people in Sudan. What are they saying? Do they have confidence that this is going in the right direction?
So before we get into what people are saying, it's important to remember that all of this entire negotiation is happening with a near internet blackout that affects most of the people in Sudan, and the internet was cut off by the state. And the state obviously has command of the official channels of communications, so state media. With that being said, we were able to reach some people on the ground, and the reactions have been mixed. There's a general feeling that it's a compromise, but there were no other options, that the forces of freedom and change had to realize that any kind of agreement would have to involve the military, and that some compromise needed to be reached, and that the TMC had to be included, which was not always the aspiration of the protest movement. But there are people that are disappointed, and they are disappointed to still see the faces that were prominent in the Bashir era, whether it's Hemeti, the RSF commander, or Burhan, who was the head of the Transitional Military Council. There's also the important clause in this agreement that vows to investigate the atrocities on the streets, but then there are big question marks about whether the people that are allegedly complicit in these atrocities can investigate themselves. How fair would that be? And as as we've been saying, it really remains to be seen if this agreement will hold, because at any time the military still commands the power to basically call it off and take power completely.
All right, DW's Aya Ibrahim, thanks so much.